Welcome to the On Your Mind podcast, where we believe mental illness can be temporary and transformative. Stay tuned for innovative, effective tools from experts in the field of mental health. Hosted by Timothy J. Hayes, psychologist. This podcast aims to change the narrative around mental illness. Move from a place of fear to a place of hope and solutions. Here on Your Mind.
Dr. Aarti Soorya is a board-certified physical medicine and rehabilitation physician who combines her conventional medical training with leading-edge concepts in integrative functional medicine. Her approach includes treating the root cause of disease through lifestyle interventions, nutrition, and mindset. So welcome. Thank you for joining us here this morning.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
I wonder if you could start us off by telling us a little bit about how you got started on this path and what drives your passion in it.
Sure. So for me, the path actually began before entering medical school. I was always really fascinated with, looking at the body as a whole. It just that concept always just made sense to me. And so before I went to medical school, I did some research at the University of Michigan in their integrative medicine department. And I just loved it. I felt like, wow, this is such comprehensive treatment. And it was really nice to see patients actually improve in their mood, the way their outlook in life, and like how they were approaching life in their day-to-day situations. And so that was always kind of in the back of my mind. And then the advice at that time was to go to medical school and then after do some training in integrative or functional medicine. And so I did that basically. And, you kind of forget about it when you get caught up in training. And when I was in residency, I was always into the wellness stuff. I just couldn't get enough about, reading about it. And so my last year of residency, I freaked out because I was like, I am not enjoying this. Like, I just felt like we were not treating a patient comprehensively. They would come to us, and then it was pretty much just med management at that point because you're only given so much time. And you couldn't really delve deep into someone's issues or get to the root cause of why they were having some of their issues without, getting your clinic backed up. So I went to Google and then I started researching, integrative medicine programs. And then finally I decided to pursue functional medicine. And that led me to, joining a clinic here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and have been loving treating people, looking at them as a whole.
Wonderful. So do you have a specialty that you focus on, or is it just that you're focused on the functional medicine approach?
So I was formally trained in physical medicine and rehabilitation. So that was looking at spinal cord injuries, brain injuries, strokes, musculoskeletal disorders. And then I went and further did training in functional medicine, which looks at nutritional deficiencies, issues with lifestyle, hormone balance. And so it's kind of an unusual combination of training, but right now mostly just doing functional medicine.
So as a primary care physician for most people?
No, so I would be more of as an adjunct to people keeping their primary care doctor because I wasn't trained in primary care. So for me, I get to do the work behind the scenes where I'm looking at people's nutritional status, what are their hormones doing, and then getting to the root that way. Why are they having high blood pressure? Why is their mood off?
And so what's the primary set of factors that would trigger somebody to be referred to you? Is it more one category of symptoms than another, or? No,
for people to be, who come see a functional medicine doctor, usually have been through the ringer in the conventional setting where they've gone, doctor to doctor to doctor, and haven't gotten any resolution of their symptoms. And so here we get to take the time to really look comprehensively at what is causing their issues in the first place. And so we see a bunch of stuff as mood, hormone imbalance.
Makes me want to cry. So you have to do all of the stuff that the allopathic medical people would have to go through all of their medicines and have everything fail before they come and start looking for the
They
cause.
don't have to do that. They don't have to do that. They
Okay.
can come straight to me. They can come straight to me. The problem is people don't know that this is an option for them. And we've been very conditioned to think that, you know, the answers are usually in the allopathic world. And so people usually have been through the ringer, and then I think from their own volition are, you know, searching for more answers, and then they find out about functional medicine. It isn't a common term yet for people. So it's growing, but it's not quite there yet.
Well, we certainly would like to have that be, especially in the mental health field. You know, there are so many people who just get bombarded with medications and warehoused for so long before somebody finally says, okay, enough is enough. And if you start with a holistic or integrative or functional medicine approach, you're much more likely to get good results.
Absolutely.
Much more quickly. So do you get a lot of referrals for people with mental health issues?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mood is probably one of the biggest things that we see in our clinic. Yeah.
And so where do you begin with someone
So
when they come in with a mood problem?
So it's still the basics of, you know, how we look at everything in functional medicine. You do urine testing to see what is their nutritional status, or we're looking at B vitamins and minerals, and are they detoxifying well? Because if you're deficient in, let's say, B6 or iron, you cannot make your neurotransmitters, which help you feel good in your body, right? And so we're just looking at the basic building blocks, amino acids. So if you are deficient in all these things and you're trying to take a medication that's going to, you know, most of them are SSRIs that people may use, reuptake, you know, inhibitors, you're assuming that you're nutritionally sound. But if you're not nutritionally sound, you're probably not making it quite as well as you should be. So just first starting, you know, where are the basic building blocks of your body? Are they there or not there? And then subsequently we'll look at, you know, your cortisol profile throughout the day. So in our modern day, we have a lot of, people will call this adrenal fatigue, but it's more what it's called hypothalamus pituitary adrenal dysregulation. So this is where we're combining the brain and the body. It is connected, you know, so I would tell you most people in our modern day have hypothalamus pituitary adrenal dysregulation. And so one is trying to reteach the system how to behave, right? So you can be using herbs to kind of bring people back, you know, out of fight or flight, which a lot of us live in, more into balanced parasympathetic state, meaning rest and digest. Because if your system is constantly running, it's really hard to repair. It's really, really hard to repair. And the basic premise is, what are the stressors breaking down your system? So you got to fix those stressors first, address them so that your system can be balanced.
And so you're looking mostly at the physical stressors, the absence of certain nutrients, or the inability to process certain nutrients, or the balance between certain nutrients. And that's where you look. And I, of course, as a psychologist, I work more with that. What am I doing with my mental processing to create the sense of stress?
Absolutely. And I will tell you this, we'll look at physical stressors, but we also screen for emotional stressors. People have a lot of stories that have, you know, brought them to where they are at, you know, trauma.
I'm glad you said the T word.
Yeah. Trauma is huge. And I always tell people, because I think in our society, we tend to negate, and especially in allopathic medicine, we've disconnected the mind from the body. And I tell people, listen, any sort of emotional stressor or trauma has the exact same effect on the body. It will dysregulate you, what we call the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, as much as an infection would, as sleep apnea would, as an actual physical trauma, like an accident would. You have the same effect. So you still have to fix that trauma or deal with it, work through it, which is, you know, something that it's your expertise.
Well, and we have, you know, as you said, they're not separate. So we have this interweave, and there are all kinds of people who come to me and they do really good work in the therapy sessions. They feel better. They've got a different way to look at their life. And then they go home and it all falls apart. And that's when I like to refer to someone like you to help these people look at what's the lifestyle. I was on your Instagram channel and you had a thing about what's it called? How to create miracle grow for the brain.
Uh-huh.
Can you
Yeah,
give us
absolutely.
a little
Absolutely.
fill in for that?
Absolutely. So miracle grow for the brain is brain-derived neurotropic factor. And the ways to help that nourish and grow is through lifestyle practices. And that's what I'm fascinated with. That's what I love, because I think it's so powerful. And I've experienced that for my own self, you know. And breath work. I think breath work is one of the most powerful tools that you can have to really, really, center yourself and train your nervous system to be more in parasympathetic state or a more balanced state. Okay. So that's that exercise. So things like high intensity interval training, short amount of time, but you're pumping up your mitochondria. Your brain is filled with mitochondria. So if you're feeding them and fueling them, you're going to feel better. You're going to become more resilient. And it's good for your body too, you know, for your muscles. Any sort of soothing activity is going to help, you know, create miracle grow for your brain. A good diet, fasting can, in the right person, be a good way to help feed your mitochondria to become a little bit more resilient. So that's what I'm just fascinated with that stuff.
And you called it brain-derived neurotrophic factory?
Factor.
The factor. So it's exercise, sleep, meditation, breath work, and sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
What's the, you know, I run into people and they say, well, the sun's bad for you, it'll give you skin cancer. And so address that a little bit, please.
Sure. So, you know, morning sun is actually very, very therapeutic for you. Okay. One, it's not, the UV light is not going to be as intense. So it's not going to disrupt your skin function and predispose you to what they call, you know, skin cancer. So with that, just exposing yourself to light can help give the signal to the brain in the hypothalamus, the region called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, that then trains the rest of your organs. It entrains them, okay, it's this time of day, I need to release these hormones, I need to release these neurotransmitters. It's free drug, essentially. And I think most of us are inside too much, that we're not being exposed to that, and we're seeing the effects on our mood and motivation and fatigue and energy levels. And so sunlight is a nice drug where you expose yourself in the morning, and then also if you can in the evening, because those rays are different and your body can sense then if you have a circadian rhythm, you are then able to repair at the right time. If you're constantly disrupting that, you know, you feel groggy, if you don't feel as good. You can see, like, you know, if you've traveled to some place and you have jet lag, you know, you feel off. And so we were meant to live in rhythm with nature. We've just disrupted a lot of that with our modern technology.
And being so isolated from it. So many people are isolated from it. I know I have several people that really struggle with the seasonal affective disorder, and they don't have access to a safe or a healthy way to get outside in the morning and the evening. So I've seen a number of people who've benefited from the full spectrum light boxes.
Absolutely.
As a second level. I mean, that's not the prime. The recommendation is get yourself outside in the morning and get yourself outside in the evening. But I do have people who've seen some consistent results if they can get themselves to apply that light. And it's something
small
that,
habits, right? It's small changes
right,
that they
there
make.
you go. Yeah, and it's something that, you know, they can be reading a book or even watching TV. I don't really watch that much TV, but I'm engaged here and the light's over here coming at me. So it's not like I have to be staring at the light and have everything else isolated. It's not like a meditation where I have to sit in complete silence for
Sure.
20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there a particular kind of breathing that you recommend? You mentioned breath work.
Mm-hmm. So simple breathing technique can be the 4-7-8 breath, which I think you're probably familiar with, where you inhale for 4 counts and then hold for 7 counts and then exhale through your mouth for 8 counts. And whenever the exhale is longer than the inhale, you're now training your nervous system to become more parasympathetic. And so I think that's really, really powerful and easy for people to do. And it's free and you can do it anywhere. And the more you train yourself, the more you're going to see, okay, stressors don't, like things that would cause me stress before, I'm holding a little bit more steady.
Yeah, I recommend people do that. When I got introduced to the 4-7-8 technique, it was through Dr. Andrew Weil, and
Yes.
and his recommendation was that this is so powerful for disrupting anxiety that he advised that people only do it once or twice in the beginning. And so what I've taken to for decades now is to tell people, comfortably fill your lungs, pause for a couple seconds, maybe 2 or 3 counts, and then just resist the exhale so that it's 4 to 8 times longer than the inhale. So whatever size your lung capacity is, you're not trying to go for 30 seconds.
Right. That's a great point.
You're just going to make the exhale 4 to 8 times longer than the inhale. And for the same reason, because it initiates that parasympathetic response. It's the kind of breath I can't take when I'm being, chased by an angry person or running up a flight of stairs. So I also recently came across another therapist who had talked about a little necklace, a little tube necklace, and it's got a little Japanese emblem on it. And it's just a reminder. And when you breathe through that without trying to blow like a whistle, you're not trying to pressure the air out, you're just gently relaxing through. It makes the exhale extend longer than normal, and it does that calming. So I tell people, if you do that kind of breathing 4 or 5 times a day and in your regular day-to-day life, not just when you're stressed, after a few weeks, you're going to build a muscle memory for that. And the next time you comfortably fill your lungs and hold it for a couple counts, your body's going to say, oh, Tim wants to relax. And you'll start to feel that cascade. And then you have a tool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's powerful. I think people don't realize how powerful it can be. So I'm a big fan of breath work.
Any more you want to say about the breath work or different types of breathing?
Yeah, the other, there's different breathing techniques that you can do. So there's yogic breathing techniques. So another one that works really, really well is alternate nostril breathing. So I'm going to look a little funky here, but you can inhale through one nostril and then you close it off with your ring finger, exhale through the other one, and then inhale through your right, and then exhale through the left. And what this is doing is balancing both sides of the brain and essentially both sides of the nervous system. So that was also something that has worked really, really well for me. I used to have a lot of trouble sleeping. And so this has been extremely powerful in kind of bringing my nervous system a little bit more balanced. But I would say whatever works for someone, you might have to kind of do a little trial and error, see which one you're actually going to do, and then do that. There's no one perfect, I think, breathing technique. These are just very common ones that do work for most people.
Yeah, and I say the same thing to people. Do what works for you. Some people have a mind that gets so invested in the counting and am I doing it right and what number was I on, and so they create stress rather than calm. So I just tell people to be focusing on the sensation when you slow it down. And when you slow your system down intentionally, as you said, it initiates that parasympathetic response, and that's so instrumental in boosting the immune system and getting all of the rejuvenating processes going. And I tell people, they're sitting there in your body anxious to work. You know,
Yes.
they just want the right materials and enough energy and enough consciousness so they can clean your system and get you ready for the next adventure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing that can work is if people like to sing, because that helps activate the vagus nerve, which is calming. So humming even, or you don't have to be a singer, but just belts out some tunes that can really be helpful in soothing the nervous system.
So we've got breathing, we've got, the sunlight, we've got the idea of going to someone like you who can help assess what's the nutrient balance or deficiency in my system. What other areas do you look at with people?
Sure. So we'll look at hormonal balance as well. So like a lot of people do saliva testing that can also show where your neurotransmitters are. So it's very validating, I think, for some people to see that testing. Do I think everyone needs it? Not really, but I think it's very validating for a lot of people to see, okay, I'm really struggling in this area. It's not just in my head, there's actually something tangible. So looking at your cortisol profile throughout the day can be very, very helpful, because some people have a dysregulated cortisol profile. It should start, I say it's like cortisol is like the sun, so it should start high in the morning and then flow nicely down as the evening comes on. But some people, start tanked and then they spike and then they go like this. So that is a dysregulated cortisol profile, or people are wired and tired. So based on that, you can start to assess and do the proper treatment to kind of help bring that into balance. One point I forgot to make earlier was that your hormones and your neurotransmitters, all of that is connected. So when you're in fight or flight, all the time, which most of us are in this modern day, that upregulates your cortisol. And so cortisol is like the alarm system for the body. You're sensing fear. And so we're interpreting it like we're supposed to run away from a tiger, because we're still wired ancestrally. And so when your cortisol is high, you are then also upregulating your norepinephrine and epinephrine to run away from the tiger. We were only meant to do that for short periods of time. And now in our modern day, we're doing this weight like 24/7. It's depleting. It's very depleting to the nerve, like everything, your hormones, your neurotransmitters. So really, really figuring out what are the stressors, and then, subsequently kind of addressing one by one so that you can kind of come back into balance.
Yeah, I was just flashing on the thoughts about what I think is a very good YouTube video. It's a documentary titled Stress, Portrait of a Killer, and it's available for free on YouTube, the whole documentary. And it talks about a lot of the things that you just talked about. And the more we can become conscious of it, the other thing I like to do is to turn people on to resources that don't cost them anything to look into it. And one of them is the emotional freedom technique, tapping.
Yes.
It's kind of a way to give
Tapping.
yourself an acupressure treatment for anything that bothers you physically, mentally, or emotionally. And I've lost track of how many years now I've been teaching that to every one of my patients who's willing to learn. Because I know a couple techniques that use the acupressure meridians in my therapy office. But when I discovered this years after I was doing that work, they can do it free at home.
Absolutely.
The creator put an 80-page PDF on the internet for free, and it tells you exactly what to do. And so it sounds like, one of the things we have in common is that we're trying to teach people things that empower them to create their own inner state and a healthier inner state.
Absolutely. Like, so to give you an example, like the goal when you come to work with a functional medicine practitioner is not to see them forever. It's really just to come back into balance and then leave with tools that are going to keep you healthy and resilient long term. So the idea is that it's not something, you're constantly going to need to work at, like with someone. Like you will get there. You have the power within you.
So do you have a story that would illustrate like a transformation or a success that someone had in working with you that wasn't at all addressed with all of the usual medications? And
Sure. So I had one patient, I mean, there's several stories, but one patient really sticks out in my mind. She's like in her 50s, and she was having a lot of hair loss, fatigue, and just wasn't feeling well. And she went to her conventional doctor, said everything was normal on their lab work. And so when she came to see me, I was like, already thinking like she's probably got hormonal imbalance, possible thyroid issues. The thing with functional medicine is that you're going to look a little bit more in depth. So like we did like full screening with like inflammation markers, ruling out autoimmunity, which she actually ended up having for her thyroid. And that was missed for years in the conventional setting because they don't necessarily screen for that. And with our modern day, autoimmunity is on the rise. And so just making sure we were like ruling out any other autoimmune conditions, and then her hormones, and then looking for other stressors in her life. So for her, she was part of this community where she just kind of felt like an outsider. There was a lot of stress going on with that. And then she also had mercury fillings in her mouth that were leaching into her system. So there was emotional stress, there was physical stress of sleep apnea as well. So she had multiple stressors that we started to kind of tick off one by one. Emotionally, the stressor that, with her community, she kind of finally decided, I need to let this go and, kind of move on. And she did. And you could start to see when we rechecked her blood work and, we started addressing the sleep apnea, we started addressing the mercury fillings that she had. You retest her blood work, her cholesterol's coming down, her inflammation markers are going down, her autoimmunity markers are going down. So she was starting to just kind of naturally kind of come into balance once we started to support her body nutritionally, emotionally, hormonally. So it's just a beautiful story where you just, attack every like system systematically, you will, see the results. It just takes a little bit work on the patient's part.
so in the beginning there, you said the autoimmune disorders are on the rise in our culture for cultural reasons. What factors would you say are driving the increase in autoimmune disorders?
So a lot of it begins in the gut. So the immune system lies in the gut. And so if you have what we call like a leaky gut, when your gut is your first line of defense from the outside world. Okay. So when you take food in or you're breathing in something, it's all coming down, and then it's coming to the gut, and then it's being excreted out. Now, if you're constantly being bombarded with bad stuff, it's going to start to make the gut wall more leaky. And now stuff is leaking into the bloodstream that shouldn't be there, thus causing an immune reaction, because your immune system is like, what is this in the blood? I need to attack it. So things that can cause leaky gut can be stress. Okay. So that's really, really big. Stress can cause leaky gut. Poor processed foods, not eating enough vegetables, like fiber that feeds the good bacteria in the gut. So there's a lot of research coming out now is the microbiome. It's the big thing everyone's talking about. The microbiome is a collection of bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi in your gut. And the more diverse it is related to more, improved or overall better health. But because our diets have become so restrictive, people are going on these crazy fad diets, it's actually starting to shrink the diversity of the microbiome. And when you shrink the diversity of the microbiome, you're now showing up with symptoms. It can be hormone balance, it can be, food sensitivities, it can be mood issues, it can be hormone imbalance, you name it. So really concentrating on, what they do in the blue zones, which are like the healthiest living population. The more diverse your diet, the better. The more fiber and plants that you're eating, the better. Having some sort of community, maintaining a circadian rhythm, like the things that the healthiest living populations do, we should be, trying to emulate that, because they got it figured out.
Yeah, I have the, when I was looking on your website, I saw that you have those blue zones highlighted on this world map. And to me, it looked like they were kind of centered around the equator. Did I miss something, or are most of them in that equator region?
You're right. A good chunk of them are around that area. Maybe Loma Linda might be a little bit higher up in Cali, but trying to just diversify is probably a really big thing about creating a diverse microbiome.
And diversify in what?
I'm
the
sorry,
various
yeah.
foods that you eat?
Yes, the various foods that you eat. Yes. Because then you're getting all the phytochemicals and the nutrients from every single plant that you're eating. That way you're fulfilling the kind of nutritional needs that we might have. Right now, everyone's in a rush that you may not be actually diversifying as much as you should be. That's why they say eat the rainbow, because then you're getting your combination of all the nutrients that you need.
Well, and one of the problems is that we aren't really taught what food is. We're taught to eat things that come in a bag or through a fast food drive-out window, and so, as you mentioned, the eating vegetables. Well, we aren't even taught. I remember several stories about people that would go into these low-income areas, and people had no kitchen utensils. They had no way to make a meal. They didn't have any knowledge of it, and they just started to introduce the basics of food. Foods are things that grow in the ground or grow on a tree, and that's it. And so, everything else that you eat is okay, but first fill up with foods.
Yes.
Fruits, vegetables, the whole grains, the beans, etc. So we're clearly on the same page, except that most of the time when I run into people and they're at that break point level for stress, they aren't doing any of that.
Right.
So every little bit they can do to increase their variety of food intake and a little bit of exercise and a little bit of the breathing and a little bit more outside time, and then quite a bit of the internal management, whether it's the EFT tapping or the breath work or canceling goals. It isn't hard to take somebody who's at the brink back quite a bit if they're willing to change some little things.
Yeah, and you mentioned getting outside. There's studies that show just 10 minutes outside can help start to bring your cortisol levels down. We were meant to be outside.
Yeah.
And we're not. So of course it's going to cause some sort of stress in our body. Yesterday I had a full clinic and I was feeling it because it was all telemedicine. And I was like, I just need to get outside after it was done, because I was like, I'm feeling very anxious right now.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the telemedicine. So we're doing these interviews and people are finding out about people like you, but unless they're in your area in Michigan, they can't get access to you. So do you do much with people through distance, either telemedicine or, could people 2 or 3 states away or more get access to you, have the blood work or urine analysis sent to you, and then work with you through a telemedicine?
Yeah, we could do it through as a consult basis. So I could tell you what blood work to get. That way you can, run it by your primary care doctor who would order it. And that way, because it's going to go through insurance. So unless you physically come see me, which you would only have to do for the physical, the rest can be done via telemedicine. But if that's not an option, we could always do it as a consult basis, where I could guide you and then tell you some recommendations, and then kind of work systematically through that as a coach.
Kind of do a tag team with the primary care physician who could order the tests, and then after that you can do the analysis of those tests and guide someone as to the steps they might take to get on a healthier path.
Exactly.
All right, so what area of your work might we not even have touched on yet that you want to make sure and tell us about?
So I work very closely with a registered dietitian because that is her expertise. And so I have patients see her as well so that they're getting the full, complete knowledge base on how to cook or where to even begin if you don't cook, so that you're setting yourself up for success. Because I'll do the medical stuff, but I think food and the way you prepare your food is so important to your overall health. And so I have patients see the registered dietitian as well, so that we're kind of getting all aspects of the care taken care of, so they don't feel overwhelmed either.
And so is that an ongoing relationship with the dietitian or just an initial consult?
It can be an ongoing relationship. It just depends on the patient, because some patients have a already high level of understanding. If they are already good, she'll be like, I don't need to see you more than once. But for some people, they need a little bit more coaching, and she's there. And then we also have a patient health educator, who serves as like a coach to kind of help keep people on track. If they need supplements, how to implement them, or if they're having difficulty with a supplement, then she can help troubleshoot that. So we have like kind of a full team so that you're kind of well taken care of. And the idea is not to be on supplements forever. I'm not a fan of that. I think it's there for a reason. Use it as a tool. And then when you're done, with your treatment, you just kind of have like a simple plan that you might need a multivitamin or a vitamin D for a while, things that most people are deficient in, that we just can't keep those levels up.
Okay, so if somebody can't make it to where you are and they want to find somebody in their insurance or what kinds of search words or terms would you guide them to look for if they wanted to find somebody who's educated the way you are?
Sure. So they can look, we mentioned Dr. Andrew Weil before. He has a whole training program for physicians. So you can look, he's at the, I think, University of Arizona. So there's like a search engine there. You can look through the Institute for Functional Medicine. So ifm.org, I believe, is the website. You can look through for a practitioner that way in your area, as well as A4M. That is another big functional medicine training program that they help train, physicians or other practitioners.
So is that just the letter A, the number 4, and
Yep.
and the letter M? Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So there's different ways, or even if those don't work, you can just search functional medicine or integrative medicine and in your area, and then you can easily find probably a practitioner.
Well, I hope so. I hope it's getting more and more popular. And I recently had somebody in my office that told me about someone they're seeing in an integrative specialist who's only about an hour away, which was a relief because a lot of people have to go farther than that. So closing comments?
I would say if you have any sort of symptom, address it, look at it as your body's way of telling you that something is off balance. Don't push it to the side. Don't wish that it'll go away. Be proactive, because it will set you up for overall long-term health. Okay. And there's always a light. So don't give up hope. There are other ways. If you've been failed by, conventional therapies, there are definitely other ways that you can get better.
Yeah, I have to echo that. And I think about, free resources. There's an interview that Krista Tippett did with Dr. Mark Hyman and 2 other people. So it's about functional medicine. So if you go to onbeing.org,
Mm-hmm.
and this is from back in December of 2015, I believe. A lovely interview with Dr. Mark Hyman and 2 other people. All of them had serious medical problems that the allopathic community could not help them with.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 of them were medical doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And they all came through them with the functional medicine or alternative or integrative medicine. And then each of them started their own clinic. So That's a great resource, a good place to start. Don't lose hope. There's all kinds of things out there. And I love the idea of listening to the symptom as a communication from your body rather than something you want to numb out or run away from.
Exactly, because I think we're conditioned to think that's the way. Like, if you have pain, what do? We suppress it. But take a step back. It's there for a reason. It's an alarm. Yeah. It's an alarm for your body.
Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I greatly appreciate it, and I look forward to any leads you might give me about other people you think would have a good message. I can't wait to share some people with you. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Dr. Aarti Soorya is a board-certified physical medicine and rehabilitation specialist who combines her conventional medical training with leading-edge concepts in integrative and functional medicine. Her approach includes treating the root cause of disease through lifestyle interventions, nutrition, and mindset. Known for being ahead of the curve, Dr. Soorya's career path in integrative medicine began long before attending medical school as a research intern for the University of Michigan's Integrative Medicine program. There, she observed firsthand how a comprehensive whole-person approach led to profound and life-changing results for the patients she worked with. During her hospital years at Washington University, Dr. Soorya received numerous accolades, including her role as chief resident, physician, and resident of the year for her work ethic, leadership qualities, and excellent bedside manner. Dr. Soorya believes healthy people are happy people, and happy people change the world. She loves supporting individuals on their health journeys so that they can contribute to the world what they were meant to contribute. You may find Dr. Soorya on Facebook and Instagram at dr.asoorya.
You've been listening to the On Your Mind podcast, offered by Journey's Dream, where we support people through mental health challenges to a place of true and lasting well-being. If you love our show, we invite you to visit onyourmindpodcast.org to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our helpful resources. Thank you for listening.